Hey there, this is John for another episode of Storytime Chapter 1. Ava had always been an adventurous girl. She loved trying new things, exploring new places, and meeting new people. So when she received an invite to an exclusive underground party, she didn't hesitate to RSVP. The invitation was cryptic, with only the date and time, and a location in the heart of the city. But Ava didn't let that deter her. She put on her favorite outfit, grabbed her phone, and set out for the party. As she walked through the dimly lit alleyways, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. She had never been to an underground party before, and she was eager to see what it was all about. As she approached the address on the invitation, she noticed a group of people standing outside a nondescript door. They looked cool and edgy, dressed in leather jackets, ripped jeans, and tattoos. Ava took a deep breath and joined the group, hoping to blend in. The door opened, and a bouncer appeared. He looked Ava up and down, then nodded and let her in. As she stepped inside, she was hit by the thumping bass of the music. The room was dark, with neon lights flashing and people dancing everywhere. Ava made her way to the bar, where she ordered a drink and scanned the room. Everyone looked like they were having the time of their lives, and Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. This was exactly what she had been looking for. Suddenly, a man appeared at her side. He was tall and handsome, with a crooked smile and piercing blue eyes. "Hey, I'm Max," he said, offering his hand. Ava shook his hand, feeling a surge of attraction. Max was exactly her type, adventurous, confident, and a little bit dangerous. As they talked, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of connection. Max seemed to understand her on a level that no one else did, and she found herself drawn to him. Before she knew it, they were dancing together, lost in the music and the moment. Ava felt alive and free, like nothing could stop her. But little did she know, danger was lurking just around the corner. Ava and Max continued to dance and flirt, lost in their own little world. But as the party began to wind down, Ava noticed something strange. People were starting to leave in a hurry, whispering to each other and looking over their shoulders. Ava tried to ignore it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As she headed towards the door, Max appeared at her side. "Hey, do you want to come back to my place?" he asked, his voice low and seductive. Ava hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She had always been a risk-taker, and something about Max made her feel alive. As they left the party and headed towards Max's apartment, Ava felt a sense of unease. The streets were deserted, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. But Max seemed oblivious to her concerns, and they continued on their way. When they finally arrived at his apartment, Ava was relieved to be safe and sound. As they settled onto the couch, Max poured them each a glass of wine. They talked and laughed, lost in their own little world. But as the night wore on, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Ava jumped, feeling a surge of fear. Max got up to answer it, but when he opened the door, he was met by two masked men. Chapter 3. Ava's heart raced as the men pushed their way into the apartment. They were wearing black masks and carrying guns, and Ava could feel the fear coursing through her body. "What do you want?" Max demanded, trying to sound brave. The men didn't answer. Instead, they started searching the apartment, tearing through drawers and cabinets. Ava tried to stay calm, but her mind was racing. Who were these men? Why were they here? And what did they want? Suddenly, one of the men turned to her. "Where is it?" he demanded, his voice cold and threatening. Ava had no idea what he was talking about. "I don't know what you mean," she said, her voice shaking. The man didn't believe her. He grabbed her by the arm, pulling her towards him. "Don't lie to me," he growled. "We know you have it." Ava's mind was racing. What did they think she had? And how could she convince them she didn't? But before she could answer, there was a sudden commotion. The front door burst open, and a group of men stormed into the apartment. Ava's heart leaped with hope. Maybe these were the good guys, come to rescue her and Max. But as the two groups clashed, Ava realized that she was wrong. These men weren't here to save her. They were here for the same thing as the masked men, whatever it was they were looking for. As the two groups fought, Ava realized that she was caught in the middle of something dangerous. Something that she had no idea around her. Ava knew she had to escape. She couldn't stay in the apartment with these dangerous men. She had to find a way out. As the two groups fought, Ava slipped away, moving quickly and quietly towards the door. She didn't know where she was going or what she was doing, but she knew that she had to get out. As she reached the door, she could hear the sounds of the fight behind her. She knew she didn't have much time. Ava pushed open the door and stepped out into the night. She didn't know where she was, but she could feel the danger lurking around every corner. She started running, her heart racing and her breath coming in short gasps. She had to find a place to hide, to regroup, to figure out what was going on. As she ran through the streets, Ava realized that she was in a part of the city she had never been to before. The buildings were tall and imposing, and the streets were dark and deserted. But as she turned a corner, she saw a light in the distance. A flicker of hope in the darkness. She ran towards the light, her heart pounding in her chest. As she got closer, she saw that it was a small bar, with a neon sign outside that read, "The Safe House." Ava hesitated for a moment, then pushed open the door and stepped inside. Chapter 5. The safe house was dimly lit, with a smoky atmosphere and a low murmur of voices. It was the kind of place that felt both safe and dangerous at the same time. As Ava stepped inside, she was greeted by a bartender with a friendly smile. "What can I get you?" he asked. "A whiskey," Ava said, her voice shaking. The bartender poured her a drink, and Ava took a sip. The warm liquid spread through her body, calming her nerves. As she sat at the bar, Ava tried to piece together what had just happened. Who were those men, trying to find any clues or information that might help her? But all she saw were a few patrons sitting at tables, quietly sipping their drinks. Then, she noticed a man sitting alone at a table in the corner. He was dressed in a black suit, with a fedora hat pulled low over his eyes. Ava's heart skipped a beat. There was something about him that made her think he might know more than he let on. She got up from the bar and walked over to the man's table. "Excuse me," she said tentatively. "Do you have a minute?" The man looked up at her, his eyes piercing through the darkness. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. Ava hesitated for a moment, then decided to take a chance. "I'm in trouble," she said. "I don't know who to trust, but I feel like you might be able to help me." The man looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Sit down," he said, motioning to the chair across from him. Ava sat down, her heart racing. She didn't know what to expect, but she felt like she had no other options. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Ava," she replied. The man nodded. "I'm Jack," he said. "And I think I know what you're mixed up in." Ava's eyes widened. "You do?" she asked. Jack nodded. "There's a lot of dangerous people out there," he said. "And they're all after the same thing, a valuable piece of information that could change everything." Ava felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. She had a feeling she knew what Jack was talking about. "You mean the code?" she asked. Jack's eyes narrowed. "How did you know about that?" "A friend of mine, Max, was involved with some people who were looking for it," Ava explained. "I don't know much about it, but I know it's important." Jack leaned back in his chair, his eyes scanning the bar. "We can't talk about it here," he said finally. "It's not safe. But if you want my help, meet me tomorrow at midnight at the old train station. And come alone." With that, Jack got up from the table and disappeared into the darkness. Ava sat there for a moment, her mind reeling. She didn't know what she was getting into, but she knew she had to find out more about the code. She sat down nervously, feeling the weight of the situation. "Tell me everything you know about the code," Jack said, his eyes fixed on her. Ava took a deep breath and began to explain everything she knew about the code, Max's involvement, the people he was working with, and the rumors she had heard about its importance. Jack listened intently, his face betraying no emotion. Finally, he spoke. "The code is real," he said. "And it's more important than anyone realizes." He explained that the code was a powerful encryption algorithm that had been developed by a small group of hackers. It was capable of securing any type of digital communication, from emails to financial transactions, and had the potential to revolutionize the entire industry. But the code had been stolen, and now it was in the hands of dangerous people who would stop at nothing to use it for their own purposes. "We have to get the code back," Jack said firmly. "Before it's too late." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of urgency building within her. She didn't know what she could do to help, but she knew she had to try. Together, Ava and Jack began to work on a plan to track down the code and retrieve it. They spent long hours poring over maps and analyzing data, trying to piece together the puzzle. As they worked, Ava began to realize that Jack was more than just a random stranger she had met in a bar. He was skilled, knowledgeable, and had connections that went far beyond what she had imagined. Slowly but surely, they began to uncover the trail of the code. They traced it to a remote location in the mountains, where it was being guarded by a team of highly trained mercenaries. Ava and Jack knew they had to act fast. They gathered a team of their own, consisting of hackers, tech experts, and ex-military operatives. Together, they launched a daring raid on the compound where the code was being held. It was a dangerous mission, and Ava knew that not everyone would make it out alive. But as they fought their way through the enemy lines, Ava felt a sense of determination and purpose that she had never felt before. She knew that what they were doing was important, not just for themselves, but for the entire world. In the end, they were successful. They retrieved the code and brought it back to safety, where it could be used for its intended purpose, to protect the privacy and security of individuals around the globe. As she sat back in her chair, exhausted but exhilarated, Ava knew that her life would never be the same. She had been thrust into a world of danger and intrigue, but she had emerged stronger and more capable than she had ever thought possible. And as she looked at Jack, who had become both her mentor and her friend, she knew that she had found something even more valuable than the code, a sense of purpose and belonging that had been missing from her life for too long.